quite an early apex, let the car wash wide in the mid and then start to bring it back straight as the track sort of starts to straighten out towards the end of the corner. One of the things I love about Brands Hatch is all the tracks, or rather, all the corners are sort of isolated. You've got sort of a straight and then a corner and then a straight again, which means you've really got to make the most of every corner around here. There's sort of a no compromise attitude you've got to take into a lap. Makes it really, really interesting. But there's also several different types of corners around here. You've got sort of your fast off cambers, you've got your fast cambered corners, and then you've got your slow big stops as well. Really, really interesting track. Very well suited to these cars, and Harley Haber seems to be at the top.
And doesn't look like anyone is going to top him either. Just 1 minute left in this session now, and most drivers, if not all drivers, have set a qualifying time. 30 people in today's top split race. Mitchell McLeod is the one driver who hasn't set a lap time. You can see in the bottom right of the screen the track map for today, the Brands Hatch circuit, 3.9 kilometers in length and only 9 corners, but it seems like so much more.
Yeah, that's it. And one of the things these guys are going to be facing, you've got a lot of very high load corners around this track. The first few corners of this track are extremely high risk, and because we've got sort of straight and then corner and then straight, it's really easy to make first lap moves around here, especially we've got 21-degree track temp tonight. The first lap and a half on these tyres is going to be a real challenge. And if you look at the lap times up the front, Harley Haber, Nicole Foggy and James Scott, all within a tenth of a second. So I think we're going to have a hell of a race for ourselves tonight.
Should be an absolute cracker. Qualifying has come to an end. Let's take a look at how they line up today at Brands Hatch. Harley Haber on pole for Mach 1 Esports. Nicole Foggy starts alongside him. James Scott, Danny Davison on the second row of the grid. Adam Briggs running out the top 5 ahead of Zachary Hanlon in 6th. Wayne Burke, Corey Preston 7th and 8th. Top 10 is rounded out by Jordan Ross and Sam Sell.
As we go over the page, you've got some more regulars. Damian Johnston, P11. Brenton Hobson having a bit of a rough night in qualifying in P12. Andrew Dyson, P13. Bo Cattell, one of our big movers from last week in P14. Thomas Hinds, P15, with James Mackey making a bit of a return after challenging so well last season in P16. Guy Leach and Brad Newman round out your row 9, with Daniel Ackland and Rob Bowden rounding out your top 20.
21st is Brian Borg. 22nd, Jordan Caruso. Jamie Stavald and Jack Boyd on row 12. Sean Thompson and Ron Pickering. 25th and 26th. Thomas Torf and Greg Sharp, 27th, 28th. Top 30, rounded out by Christian Smart and Mitchell McLeod, and that rounds out your entire field. Welcome to the stream, YouTube. Sorry for the delay in getting it live on your end. And this should be a cracking race. As we've said, a quite cold track temp out there, just 21 degrees, so a lot of grip being offered up to these drivers as well, which it has its positives and its negatives. It will make it a little bit harder to warm the tyres up because there's no track temp to do that for them, which means we could see a few drivers struggling in the early moments of this race. Is a pretty short run down to turn 1 as well for these drivers. As long as you convert relatively nicely, you shouldn't lose too many spots. And we're just waiting for the final drivers to grid up and for the lights to come on to get this one underway. So, Haber off pole, Foggy from second, Scott and Davison on row 2. Who gets the best jump? The lights are on, the revs rise.
And we're away,
mate. Green. What a long wait that was, and Haber's got away well. Nicole Foggy trying to come across to cover off James Scott there in third, and they make their way through the first corner now, and it looks like a good start for most of the field as the back half filter their way through. No incidents, and up at the hairpin there's some trouble as Danny Davison goes skating off into the outside wall. Another spinner down on the inside. Can't quite catch who that was, but that's one of the Ratu racing cars. Damian Johnstone's gone around in all of that as well. James Mackay was the other driver involved, and more incident at turn 4 as well as they finally make their way onto the back straight. That's Warren Pickering around, but at the front half they stay relatively clean and unchanged as they slipstream down towards this long, fast right-handed corner.
Yeah, the cold tyres, I think, catching a lot of guys out there, Ryan. This track is an extremely tricky one. As I say, those first few corners, very high risk, not a lot of runoff. And also, being short straights in that first part of the lap, it's also really hard to get clear. You tend to be double file for quite a lot of the lap, but now the guys seem to have got themselves single file. Harley Haber has managed to have a good quali and a good first lap for probably the first time this season, I'd say. So now he's got a Nicole Foggy right there trying to challenge him, but good start for Harley.
And James Scott is looking eager to get by Nicole Foggy early on here. He's putting more pressure on him than he is on Harley Haber out front. It's a matter of when Scott is going to get by, it seems. Foggy just struggling to get those tyres working early on. Turn 1 is a very tricky corner to get right. The car seems to really drag itself off towards the gravel on the outside. If you miss your line by the slightest of margins, you get into that gravel very easily, and that can drag you out a long, long way. As we've got a replay up on screen thanks to Motor Simulation. This is back in the pack.
As you see what happened on the first lap, it looks like one of the Synergy Sim Racing cars copped a bit of a whack, but I think it all started with Danny Davison up the front, and then everyone was a bit flustered and anxious to get on the throttle, and I think we saw a couple cars, including Thomas Hinds, just go around on cold rubber. But then it happened again down at 3. We had Warren Pickering entering backwards. Warren, a guy that we haven't seen for quite some time running in this car, so a bit of a shame for him to come back with such a poor first lap.
Yeah, big shame for him, and just a big shame for Danny Davison too, who didn't really do too much wrong on entry to that corner, and just showing just how tricky it is. Up front, Nicole Foggy has got those tyres working now, pulled out just a bit from James Scott, and is starting to pressure at the back of Harley Haber as they make their way through onto the main straight and on to lap 3. 28 laps in length today's race. Plenty of time to just sit back, be patient, and make sure you get your move done nice and cleanly as Foggy, as you see on screen, to set the fastest lap of the race that time by. Further back in the field, side-by-side action. This is Jamie Stavold in 17th place, side-by-side with Brian Borg as well. Borg on the outside, trying to hold him off. Stavold's got the inside line, the preferred line, and will take the spot away. And now trying to get through as well as Jack Boyd. No dice there on the outside. A good run. Might be able to get the inside for the next one. But it's going to have to be late and bold, and it is. It might be too bold. He's struggling to pull it up. He won't pull it up. He collects Jamie Stavold in the process. He picks up 2. There, Jordan Caruso is going to try and benefit from this as well, and he should do on the preferred line. You don't really want to go side by side through here. Jamie Stavold is going to try it. And fair play to Caruso, left him plenty of room there. But I dare say Jack Boyd will be feeling a little bit sheepish about that move.
Oh, I don't know. It was certainly very aggressive and definitely not clean, but I think he's actually done a reasonable job considering how far he threw that down the inside to actually pull it up without a sort of more serious crash happening, as we actually see a replay of Sean Thompson having a bit of a rough time down at the back end of the track. Looks like he's going to park that machine.
Another replay as well of another incident on track. This is Daniel Ackland running into potentially more issues on track. Christian Smart's in front of him, and I dare say it's a case of 2 into 1 doesn't quite work. It worked. No, it didn't. And around goes the Evolution Racing machine.
That's...
And whoa, that's an impressive crash, that one, and very unlucky for most of those drivers who just became victims of circumstance.
Yeah, I think Brian Borg there struggling without that rear wing. We mentioned last week, Brian, that a couple of weeks ago the Supercar iteration in iRacing had a bit of an update where as soon as you lose that rear wing, you lose a lot more downforce than what you did before. So I think Brian falling through the field after some early damage, but also he's going to have a really tough time hanging on to that car for the next few laps. Oh, sorry, I'm just seeing something up the front. Nicole Foggy's had a big off through one of the right-hand kinks. I think he caught the grass on the entry and had a massive slide. Did a really good job to keep it out of the fence, especially on this V7 tyre.
He certainly did. Further back as well, James Mackay did find the fence, if we can get a replay up of that one. Trying to go by Jordan Caruso on the inside and just rubbing front to rear bumpers between them, and he got dispositive off to the left-hand side as we see the mistake for Daniel Ackland and the wild and heavy impact for James Mackay. This is the story that tells the tale here. Mackay with the slipstream, dives down to the inside of Jordan Caruso, clears him, slides up in front of him. Unfortunately, that slight contact has turned him hard into that fence. Nothing he can really do about that one. Really unfortunate there.
Yeah, that's going to be all but race over from Mackie. That was a really, really heavy bit of contact there. But now we're back live, riding on board with what looks like the Altus Esports car of Zachary Hanlon as he runs down towards the bottom of the hill. This is a really awesome corner coming up. I love this corner in a supercar. It's sort of fourth gear, really, really fast, leaning on the throttle throughout the exit. And you've got a lot of one-line stuff after this, sort of leaning on the limits of what you can do with track limits. The issue you have here, especially on the new iteration of iRacing's tyre, if you lean on that grass, just like we saw Nicole Foggy do about a lap ago now, it's pretty much going to land you in the fence, especially with such little runoff. So driving through there committed is actually a really, really hard task, especially when you're right up underneath a rear wing of another car and can't see around it.
Yeah, the rear wings on these cars are obnoxiously large, shall we say.
Does look like we're sort of starting to settle in now. This is quite a long race. We've got 28 laps still to do here, so about another 22 to go. It does look like up the front it's all actually going Harley Haber's way, but last lap James Scott managed to pull a bit of time out of him. The trend we've seen from James Scott over this season, and probably the reason he's doing so well in the championship, is just his race pace has been brilliant. Super consistent, managed to pull tenths and tenths away over the race, even if he doesn't get the qualifying quite right. So I'd be interested to see if he can challenge Harley towards the end of this stint, who this season has seemed to sort of wear his rear tyres a little bit quicker than the others.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how this one plays out. At the moment, it's a 1.4 second advantage for Haber out front. And here's Jordan Caruso back in 18th place, coming under siege once again, this time from Thomas Hinz. And Caruso is a lot more conservative in conceding the position this time round. And Hinz will take that spot very easily indeed, as he has lost 4 spots since the start of this one. He's not had a particularly good opening stance of the race. Have been some decent movers throughout the field. Brenton Hobson's come up 4 spots from his 12th place starting position. Brad Newman's come up 5, and he's from 18th up to 13th. Rob Bowden has as well gained 5 positions up into 15th place. And Jack Boyd's come up 8 spots from 24th to 16th. So for you drivers having good runs through this field, only laps 7 of 28, still plenty of time to come in this one, as Damien Johnstone back in 23rd, and oh no, Jack Boyce just got into the fence. I've put the mocker on him, and he's just gone into the fence in a big way through turn 1. Corey Preston's found troubles as well. Let's take a look at the replay here.
Yeah, it looks like that's a bit of a selfie there. He's actually got on the throttle a little bit early on the exit, caught that dirt and put it straight into the tyre barrier on the right-hand side. That's going to be race over for sure. But as for Corey Preston, looks like he's copped a little bit of a knock on the entry to the hairpin, and then a second one from, I believe, that was Sam Sutton there. So I'm not sure. I know these two aren't the best of friends, but I'm curious to know if maybe something's motivated that one. It looks like, actually, no, Corey's just driven it in deep, and then Sam's unloaded him on the exit. So a bit of a tricky one there.
Yeah, maybe just a slight misjudgment through the exit of that corner. Won't be any pit stops in this race either, I do believe. Should be just a straight sprint from green to check, which means that tyre conservation is going to be very important for Haber, Scott, and the chasing pack. 1 second the advantage has been cut down to, so the number 1 driver in the session starting to find some inroads to Haber, who maybe is just thinking tyre wear. Maybe he's already used up some tyre life comparative to James Scott, and see how that one plays out over the next few laps. Still some good battling happening further down the field. Adam Briggs in 5th place at the moment. He's got Zach Hamlin right up behind him, trying to chase down Wayne Burke in front of him.
Yeah, I really want to compliment James Scott, actually. He's driven outstandingly this season, come a really long way in this new car, and the way he's just consistently pulling 10th after 10th out of Harley Haber at the moment is sort of not only good for his race, but a summary of his whole season so far. His race pace has just been so good. And although I think our soft is going to be a little bit down tonight compared to other weeks due to us not having some of our regulars here, I really, really hope that James can get this result because it's going to be good for him to capitalise over Cooper Webster after Cooper's had the upper hand on him over the last few weeks.
Gap comes down to under a second now, and in probably about now, James got to be starting to get a bit of a distant effect of the slipstream too down the main straight. The closer he gets, the stronger that will become as well. Down not only the main straight, but the chute between turns 4 and 5 as well. Probably the long straight on the track, that one is probably the best spot for slipstreaming and that, slipstream effect on the whole track. Further back, let's just move away from that topic. Zachary Hamlin has started to apply more heat to the back of Adam Briggs, the DPR racing machine. Coming under pressure, Hamlin thinks about it into turn 4, thinks better of it into turn 4. Probably the better of the two options there, but a good drive off the exit. Could see him slingshot by into turn 5, but it was an equally good exit here for Briggs, who should hold him off for this quarter. At least Hamlin's gone a bit deep, but he'll do well to keep it on the track there.
Yeah, that's it. As I keep saying, Ryan, this section of racetrack, I guess the second half of the lap at Brands Hatch is just so cool. Elevation change really makes a racetrack, in my opinion. And not only have you got that, you got little runoff and just really, really on the edge corners where you've got to drive the car absolute to the limit. I wouldn't mind actually getting an onboard lap with maybe James Scott or Harley Haber. I just really, really rate this place, and I'd love to give the viewers a bit of a perspective. I think we're riding on board with James Scott now, so maybe if we can stick with him for a lap as we come down into turn 1. Goes downhill on exit, so all that front grip's going to disappear, so you kind of get washed out wide if you're not careful, and then immediately you're sort of stopping for this really low-speed hairpin, pretty much the slowest corner on the track. But now as you run down the hill, you've got another fast left-hander where you're having to use every bit of road. You can sort of get away with using all the AstroTurf on the exit. Then you've got this awkward long left-hander with it that tightens. And the issue here is it leads onto the longest straight on the track. So getting on the power right as it goes off camber there, really, really tricky. And now you've got your big downhill section where you get to open it up into what is, in my opinion, one of the coolest corners of any racetrack in one of these cars. You just throw it in on the brake, big trail brake, get the rotation out of the thing. And then you've got this awesome section, which is just short, sharp bursts where you're using every little bit of road you can all the way up over the curb there, constantly turning, you never stop. And then this blind right-hander where you just throw it at the apex and pray you don't hit the grass on the exit. You can see him pulling in Harley through here really quick through this section. Then quite a cambered left-hander there, really easy to run wide on the exit. And now, you were speaking about this last corner earlier, kind of goes off camber and downhill on the exit, so you've got to get your turning done early while still trying to get on the power, run it out wide, and then bring it back for that second apex. It's such a busy lap. I put it right up there with like Oran Park in terms of one of the more difficult laps to get every single section right.
I think I've just found a second and lap pace from that lap alone, listening to you talk us through that. That's fantastic insight there. And that's a different kind of insight there for Zachary Hamlin, getting a look to the right-hand side of Adam Briggs' machine, sliding it in on the rears, making contact with Briggs, who will slot down behind him before Jordan Ross can capitalise, and a messy move for Hamlin, for the Altus Esports driver, so he moves himself up into P5. Wayne Burke watching on in his mirror, hoping they continue to battle away behind him. Jordan Ross and Brendan Hobson both found a bit of time relative to those two in front of them as a result of that move. And now down this long downhill section of track. I do agree with you, Jake. This is one of my favourite tracks in this car. And it's a whole lot of fun to drive. It's a whole lot of fun to watch. And some good racing as well at this place, always.
I think we should maybe get a bit of a hashtag started in the chat, which I know our director, Jay Kennedy, is going to absolutely love. How about we go hashtag brands for Scops in 2020? We can certainly get it on the vote, I think, and see if we can go racing at Brands Hatch for V8 Scops this year. Right.
I think that's definitely on the cards. If everyone that's watching this votes for Brands Hatch, we'll probably tip it over the line. Although I think one of our people watching, Bo Albert, who's very active in the YouTube chat, would probably want something like Nordschleife to be used. Hopefully that doesn't get up, because my god, what a mess that will be. Further back, John Stone's in 22nd position at the moment. trying to make some inroads to the back of Warren Pickering and Guy Leach. Pickering recovering from that early spin on lap 1, has still found 5 spots in this race despite that spin, having a pretty good job at the moment, as almost having a look at Guy Leach. I think caught 2 minds there about whether to have a go or not. In the end, doesn't, and Guy Leach is looking very much under pressure right now. There are almost 3 wide through turn 2. Trying to get to the inside was Damien Johnstone, wrong side of the track for turn 3, and they just about sorted themselves out.
Yeah, Warren Pickering, don't forget, he's on a bit of a recovery drive. He was backwards down at turn 3 on the first lap, so he's trying his best to come back through this field. His pace is actually pretty good, and he somehow ended up further up in the race than where he started, despite that first lap incident. So I think he's just trying to do a bit of a recovery drive. We've seen some awesome recovery drives this season, actually, from a lot of guys, especially in the mid-pack at the moment. We've got a lot of guys up a few positions. The likes of Newman, Bowden and Stovald all up a lot of places at the moment.
Speaking of Stovald, there he is in 15th place, side by side with Thomas Hinds, and Stovald let him go there. I saw a flash of the brakes. Oh, that was tight. That was a little tight, Jamie. A flash of the brakes on the approach to the final corner to let Hinds go by. But what about this? Side by side, further back in the field, Guy Leach about to lose out to Warren Pickering with a fantastic move up the inside. And Leach now is going to worry about Damien Johnstone as well, who throws the car to the inside line late on the brakes. Leach leaves him plenty of room to get the move done. Can't quite finish it yet. Should be well and truly out in front by the time they come through turn 2, but he's gone too deep. And what about the crossover from Guy Leach? I think he gave him a shot on that too, but now Pickering is on the correct side of the track, or Johnstone, sorry. But again, the
King of the crisscross.
What a move. What a fantastic exchange for 21st on the racetrack. Guy Leach will take it back, but for how much longer? He slides his way out of turn number 3 and coming to join the party as well as Daniel Ackland. So, who will come out on top out of the next corner? Johnstone now having to be very careful about how he makes this move, because he's going to have to worry about Daniel Ackland getting involved as well. Greg Sharp isn't too far adrift of these 3 is either. So this is quickly turning in to a big battle pack, and fantastic stuff. That was a brilliant exchange for the first half of the track.
Yeah, nothing but class from Guy Leach there. We've mentioned this in previous weeks. He is as veteran as it gets. I think Guy Leach was probably sim racing when both of us were in the womb, Ryan. So he's been doing this a long time, and awesome racing there. But it looks like we've got a bit of a replay. Jordan Caruso's actually managed to have a bit of a self-off there in the later half of the track, and he's actually now at a little bit of risk from Guy Leach. But our gap at the front's continuing to close.
Down to 3/4 of a second, and it seems to be closing at a rate where by the time we get to the last lap of this race, it should be nothing in it between the pair of them. Brenton Hobson is coming under a little bit of pressure from Sam Sutton. He's still sat in behind Jordan Ross, who's not really finding any inroads on Adam Briggs and Zachary Hanlon. Hanlon's just gone off the track, does a good job to hold on to it, loses out to Adam Briggs in the process. Regathers it, will have to get some of that dirt and grass off his tyres. But a mistake for Zachary Hanlon that would not be very much welcomed in that Alta Sea Sports camp. Loses out on the top 5 position. We'll have to make that move again, as Brenton Hobson is under all sorts of pressure now. Sam Sutton should be close enough for a move into turn 1, late on the brakes, up the inside. Hobson's going to try and hold on tough around the outside, does a fantastic job of it. Gets the drive down on the run to turn 2, squeezing Sutton to the inside. Sutton forces the issue, and there's all but a car's width on the exit for Hobson to keep his car up there, and he does fight back and take this spot away, and Sam Sutton will have to rethink his strategy on that one. Fantastic fight back from Hobson.
Yeah, these are 2 guys that I've done a lot of racing with. They're quite experienced. They, I believe, for a short period were teammates back in Synergy Sim Racing as well, way back when. So, yeah, really cool to see 2 very experienced guys who perhaps haven't done that much practice this week, and a field that's not too used to being really going at it, but going at it in the classic Sam Sutton way, which I'd say is as hard as you possibly can while still being clean.
Is that your way as well, Jake?
Absolutely. That's why we were great teammates, mate. We won an enduro.
Oh, there you go. Maybe you should get the old band back together. Then you might win something in Scops this year. I shouldn't say that. You're going to be about 30 positions in front of me in the field all season long, if that. Surprised you're not doing the racing here though, Jake, because this is good practice for Scops, isn't it? As we get closer to the season, these drivers that are running in this race will be racing against a lot of the drivers will be racing against in Scops, and it's good practice not only track-wise but experience-wise racing those guys.
Well, I think the biggest thing, Ryan, is the new car. So, you know, the likes of Jared Filsell, they're very dominant in the VF. Obviously, he's not going to be a slouch in this car by any means and will likely still be the one to beat in terms of Scops. But I think for the first couple nights of pre-qual at Montreal in a few weeks' time, the guy likes of James Scott and Cooper Webster, the guys who've been racing this car sort of week in, week out, might be a bit of a rude shock to him for the first couple of nights and force him to sort of get his act into gear, because the car is very, very different to drive, and I think it will come as a bit of a shock to even the likes of me who haven't driven this car as much as these guys who have been racing it week in, week out.
Yeah, it will be very interesting to see, and if you want to get involved in V8 Scops too, don't forget registrations are open on the iRacing forums and Ford and Holden Supercars section, so go on and sign up for that if you want to get involved, or stick around on the iRacing Esports Network and stay tuned to SimSpeed social networks to catch the broadcast of that race in a couple weeks' time. Sam Sutton's trying again, and this time Hobson's going to go defensive for the first part of the main straight, heads back to the racing line for the approach to turn 1. Sutton will try again the inside route, almost slides up to the door of Hobson. Enough room given once more. It's like deja vu. They both run a bit wide through turn 2. Sutton takes the spot away.
I love that about Sam. Hey, you can always trust he's going to get the elbows out. He's going to have a proper go. But he, as I say, gives absolutely 100% to his racecraft. There's no way that he's ever going to back down in a situation like that. Gets the elbows out, gets it done. Clean-ish move, but hopefully for him, he can now extend the legs out before Hobbo gets to have a swipe.
Yeah, that's what we love about these supercars as well. You can have a little bit of bumper and barge, nothing untoward, but a bit of contact never goes amiss in supercars racing, and nothing you see in open wheel racing, because that contact there between Sutton and Hobson, while it wasn't much, in an open wheeler car, that could ruin your race.
Yeah, that's it, certainly. It is one of the great things that we have is these versatile cars. They are a little bit more fragile than the old iteration of the iRacing supercar, so particularly when we go racing at Bathurst, or if we go to circuits like Belle Isle or something like that again this year, it's certainly going to be something that these guys are going to be quite challenged with. I'm just taking a look at our battle for the lead real quick. It does look like James Scott has had a rough couple of laps. That tyre may be phasing a little bit weird for him. He's dropped a little bit of time, making a couple little errors here and there. I've complimented his consistency, but I can't not compliment Harley's either. His lap times in this race have been very, very consistent, sort of within sort of 2 or 3 tenths, I'd say, for the last probably 6 or 7 laps, which, as I say, at a track like this, when it's so cold and you're driving so knife edge through these sections sort of towards the end of the lap, really, really impressive to be able to make that consistent.
Yeah, it certainly is. And Nicole Foggy's not going away either. Still sitting there in 3rd place, and for me, Foggy's a bit of a mystery in this one. I don't know if he's been racing in the series in the past couple of weeks, but the first I've seen of Foggy, and doing a good.
Yeah, Nicole Foggy certainly has been a regular for the last couple of weeks, Ryan. I actually believe threw it on pole last week at Spa, and obviously has I guess you could say, a bit of a home track advantage here, being a resident UK resident, I believe, racing around here at Brands Hatch.
There you go. He's probably, I wouldn't be surprised if he's raced this track in real life, been to this track in real life. Always gives you a new perspective on how to get around it, and certainly doing this home country proud. running here in a podium spot, 2.7 seconds off the lead. Further back in 11th place in the 11 machine, Bo Cattell almost getting rear-ended by Danny Davison through the turn 2 hairpin. And Davison is looking to attack here. Last time by, the lap times were pretty much identical, but it's been a slow gain for Danny Davison over the last few laps prior to that one. And trying to get himself closer to the top 10. Andrew Dyson's only about a second and a half up the road from these two, so still definitely a top 10 on the cards. 10 laps still to go on this race as well, so plenty of time still remaining for drivers to make the difference themselves, for people to make a mistake. And as the track conditions change, at 6:30 in sim time as well, so the track is getting cooler and cooler. Some cloud cover might come over and change the grip level of the track in a certain area as well. Certainly every chance that anything could still change in this one.
Wouldn't be a British track if it wasn't dark and miserable, would it, Ryan?
I mean, having just spent almost 2 months in Britain, yeah, no, it's always dark and miserable in that country.
Still a beautiful place with beautiful racetracks, though. Someone I'm kind of taking a bit of a look at the moment is Sam Sutton, who we saw get a little bit unleashed from Brenton Hobson a couple laps ago. Has actually managed to pull Jordan Ross in quite nicely. I know these two have a little bit of history racing together as well. Obviously, they raced together quite a lot in the V8 Scops Enduros last year, as Jordan Ross was teamed with Jared Filsell and Sam Sutton myself. So these two, I think, will want to get sort of fighting pretty soon. Sam's not one of those guys who likes to muck around, and we've only got 8 laps left to go here, so he's definitely got the right foot stuck in.
He does. And Jordan Ross, it does seem that this car doesn't have the same outright pace that he's had with the old car. Well, we often saw him at the front, front few positions. Whereas he seems to sit now just in and around the top 10. Certainly in the races I've caught or commentated on. Maybe just struggling to come to terms a little bit with the new physics of this car.
Well, there's a few things to consider though, Ryan. Like, I know Jordan put a lot of effort in to try and match Jared Filsell when they were teammates. Obviously a lot of pressure there, and of course he won Bathurst with Jared, so he's definitely no slouch as a driver. You never know what kind of effort these guys are putting in for the Monday night series. Obviously your championship like competitors like James Scott, those guys are going to be putting in hours and hours because they want that title. Guys like Jordan Ross could just be showing up with 20 minutes of practice just to stay accustomed to the car before Scott, so I wouldn't take this as too indicative. Jordan Ross certainly has a lot of talent, and I think he's certainly got more talent than P7 at the moment, but I think when we go V8 Scops racing in a few weeks' time, will where we truly see who's got the bees sorted in this car.
Yeah, the Premier Series is pretty much the last word. Hanlon just had a bit of a hairy moment. The last word in who's got the pace in this car. Sam Sutton almost losing all that good work through turn 3, similarly to Zach Hanlon through turn 5 just a few moments ago, allowing Jordan Ross to close up just a bit to the back of him. Sam Sutton in tow of Ross. Both drivers may get to Hanlon shortly as Dyson behind goes by Brenton Hobson with ease.
Yeah, we're catching a replay now. I think we saw a bit of a mistake from Brenton Hobson as he's coming through this high-speed section that we were talking about. Just caught a little bit of grass on the entry to the left-hander. Has done well to gather it up, actually. Really nice little slide, but it's lost him a position. I believe that was to Andrew Dyson, who's a guy who's been running up and down the field the last few weeks. One thing I want to mention as well, looking back up to the front, James Scott really had a rough last couple of laps. Harley Habers managed to pull that gap out to about a second and a half. And with how quick Harley is, I think that's just about sealed the deal. I don't want to give him the commentator's curse, but with 6 to go, a second and a half is going to be a pretty unassailable margin.
You would think so, but I will steer clear of any further comment on that matter. I've already cursed, I believe it was Jack Boyd on this one. Wayne Burke, oh, that was a wild slide. Brenton Hobson back in P10. is seemingly struggling right now for some pace in that machine. A 1:26.9 last time by the better part of 2 seconds slower than Bo-Catel, who's currently right up behind him. And I said Bo-Catel, Danny Davison, could be on for a top 10. Well, there's the 10th place man right in front of them. Hobson, P10, car number 10. It's, how hard does he want to defend? If he's struggling with the tyres, he may just want to limp around and get home to the finish. Maybe he got a slow down last time. His time normalised a bit that time around, 25.4. So, Brenton Hobson just a bit inconsistent at the moment. I'll tell you who's not inconsistent though. Nicole Foggy is starting to reel in James Scott, who's falling away further and further from Harley Haber.
Yeah, I think Nicole's probably left his run a little bit late here. It's not a particularly long lap around here. It feels long because you're so busy, but it's only about a minute 25 second lap time at this point. I think Nicole's just run out of time. We've not got many laps to go, and again, it's still a second odd margin to James Scott, so he could make something happen, but as we know, Ryan, catching someone's one thing, but passing him is a whole nother.
Yeah, passing them cleanly is a whole nother. It'd be very easy to just catch someone, bump them out of the way, but that is not the way to do it. And you will cough a penalty in 99.9% of series out there if you do that. So get it done cleanly is very key. If you don't, you end up carving a reputation for yourself. And for Nicole Foggy is starting to do this series more and more regularly. He's going to want to earn himself a reputation as a very fast racer, which he clearly is, but also a clean one.
The battle that I'm liking the look of at the moment is actually the one between the car we're on board with Adam Briggs and Wayne C. Burke at the moment. These two started to close up the last few laps. Briggsy's got some really good speed and Burke's starting to struggle. So I think the race is going to be on between these two. Burke's not a guy who's a soft racer. He certainly loves to race hard. But I also believe that Briggs has certainly got the elbows out over the last few weeks too. So really keen to see what these two can get up to.
Yeah, should be a good little scrap, this one. Briggs and Burke. 4/10 quicker last time by was Briggs, chasing down Burke, and he'll gain some more time through the slipstream effect. Downhill as they dive up towards turn 5. Never get sick of seeing the cars through here as they use absolutely all the grip they can find out there. And hopefully not anymore. Sometimes you do get a little bit sideways through that corner. And it is very hairy indeed. Oh, he's off the track. Wayne Burke, can he gather it up quickly enough? No, he can't. He's going to have to slot back in behind Adam Briggs. And Wayne Burke made that all too easy. But has he got anything left to regather that machine, find some pace and get back to Adam Briggs? That was a very costly mistake. And look at this on board.
Yeah, uncharacteristic one as well. I've had some, let's say, not so good moments with Berkey in the past, but I do really rate him as a driver. He's one of the more experienced guys in the field, races a lot of different things and can be very fast in these cars. So very uncharacteristic mistake, but I think with how much quicker Briggsy's been over the last couple of laps, I think it's going to be pretty hard after that mistake for Berkey to refocus and have any chance.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like particularly good news for Wayne Burke after that off. Nicole Foggy, last time by, he just lost a bit of the edge he's had over James Scott in the preceding laps. Maybe that dirty air starting to affect him just a bit, but he's within striking range. One mistake from Scott puts him under all sorts of pressure. Right now, James Scott, very experienced driver, knows what he's doing. He won't be feeling it too much, but certainly Nicole Foggy doing absolutely everything he can to take P2 away as the 2.5 seconds adrift of Harley Haber this battle. So Haber is well and truly checking out now and making this one a pretty simple victory in the making for himself.
We can just take a bit of a look back to the P10 battle that we're looking at. I think it's one of the closest on track at the moment. Hobson versus Dyson. Hobbo has really had some pace that last couple of laps. Davison's dropped back a little bit from these two, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see Hobbo have a bit of a dip in this next few corners. He seems to have a definite...
He's hit him! Pace. And around goes Dyson.
Okay.
Off in gravel.
So I've done myself a mischief there. That's not worked too well for, those two. But yeah, it looks like actually what I think has happened there is we catch a modem simulation replay. I think Andrew Dyson might have actually pinched a front brake there and really dropped a lot of mid-corner speed all of a sudden, and Hobbo just got completely caught out. Not like Hobbo to punt people. Normally the gentleman driver, really clean dude, but he's just been massively caught out there. Really didn't expect Dyson to have such little corner speed, and it's just tipped him around. So big shame for both those guys losing spots.
Danny Davison was the big beneficiary to that one, finding himself now in front of Brenton Hobson on track, and obviously in front of Andrew Dyson as well. Dyson is sort of back in behind Ben Bocatel. Doesn't look like Hobson's going to redress that position at the moment. And Nicole Foggy's closed up even more to James Scott. The gap now just 0.3 of a second as they come across the start-finish line. 2 laps to go now for these drivers, as Harley Haber still at 2.5 seconds. Scott's not losing more time to him, but he is losing time to Foggy. He looks like he's just been very kind to his tyres over the course of the race and using that to maximum effect now. James Scott, to the contrary, may have gone a bit hard a bit early. We saw him almost getting to it.
Yeah, these two really close over the last few laps. Nicole's certainly managed to hold on to that rubber probably better than anyone in the field, and I think he's actually getting quite close now. This is right on. Nicole's had to actually get out of it to not hit James Scott coming down the hill here. However, we're about to be 1 to go, so it's now or never. There's not really much you can do in this latter half of the lap, but turn 1 I think is certainly going to be a contested corner between these two. Good run by Foggy. It could even be early as the last corner here. Nicole's going to have to drive a really slow entry to this last corner, focus totally on that exit. Scott's narrow, so this is perfect. He's got a really good run. He may even be able to switch it back and go to the inside here. James is going to cover, so he's going to have to do it the hard way. The outside here is not somewhere you want to be. You're better to switch back and try and have a crack into the hairpin, which is exactly what he's tried to do, but James Scott's parked the bus beautifully.
And he's going to go defensive again into turn 2. Again, the outside look. And then the crossover attempt from Nicole Foggy. Can't find the room there. Through turn 2. He's looking every which way on the back of this Evolution Racing Team machine in front of him. James Scott doing a superb job to defend as Foggy gets a little bit sideways. Coming off the exit of turn 3. Turn 4 is crucial. He needs to get the run through here, and he's not got it. It was a fantastic exit for James Scott. And he opens the gap to about 2 car lengths now over Nicole Foggy, and it might just be enough to close this one out for P2, but he needs to be squeaky clean to the end here. Can't afford a single mistake, can't miss your marker by a mere meter. Foggy's right there, he's trying everything, he's using every little piece of the racetrack, going as deep as he dares into the corner, but it's not going to be enough for this corner. Is it enough for the final corner? It does look like it's going to be, because James Scott drove a fantastic defensive line to the first 2 corners out front. Harley Haber, he was challenged early, but he rose to the challenge, pulled out, and has taken victory here in Brands Hatch quite comfortably in the end from James Scott and Nicole Foggy. 2nd and 3rd. 4th place goes the way of Adam Briggs, and Wayne Burke will round out that top 5.
Yeah, really good drive from Harley tonight. He's had a really shocking couple of weeks. It's really hurt his championship. He's had a poorly driven few weeks, made a lot of mistakes, and to bounce back here, that'll be really confidence inspiring for the rest of his season. But also massive props to James Scott and Nicole Foggy. James Scott is right in that championship fight, and certainly, you know, this is the pressure cooker time. These small results, especially when Cooper's not racing this week, mean the absolute world in terms of your championship. So a well-earned P2 from him and a great drive from Foggy in P3.
Indeed it was, as the rest of the field coming around at the start finish straight now. That's David Johnstone, Guy Leach, Daniel Ackland completing their races. Jordan Caruso, Greg Sharp, Christian Smart will be the final drivers, and Thomas Torp as well will be the final driver to come across the line and complete our results here from Brands Hatch. A great race, that one. Harley Haber in the end, he just managed those tyres well. He had them when it mattered and was able to just nurse them home to the finish quite comfortably by 4 seconds in the end as we go through the unofficial results here of round 7 of the iRacing Supercar Series Monday night strength of field race. Haber from Scott, Nicole Foggy, try as he may, could only manage P3rd tonight. Adam Briggs home in 4th. Wayne Burke, a costly mistake, finishing in 5th. Zachary Hamlin had a few hairy moments of his own, managed to take P6 in the end. Jordan Ross had a relatively quiet race in P7 as it all went on around him. Sam Sutton home in 8th, had a Danny Davison and Brenton Hobson.
Yeah, over the page you got Bo Cattell, who drove another good race. He's starting to get his hands back into this car and doing a better job. P11. Andrew Dyson, we saw have that scary moment with Brenton Hobson and lose a couple spots, ended up 12th. Brad Newman in 13th with Thomas Hins in 14th. Good drive from Rob Bowden, up a few spots into 15th. Rough night for Corey Preston, ending up 16th. Jamie Stolvold up a few places in 17th. One of my drivers of the night, actually, Warren Pickering in 18th. He started at the back of the grid and ended up backwards on the first lap and still managed to bring home 18th. Great drive from him with Brian Borg and Damian Johnston rounding out your 20.
Guy Leach came home in 21st, battling hard for most of that race with Daniel Ackland, Jordan Caruso in 23rd, Greg Sharp coming home in 24th, ahead of Thomas Torp in 25th. And then the first of the cars that ran into big issues in the race, Christian Smart, 6 laps down, and the retirements of Jack Boyd, James Mackay, Sean Thompson, and Mitchell McLeod. Didn't take the start, did Mitchell McLeod on that one. And that is your 30-car field done for this race, and another fantastic addition to this series. And we look to the future races. They got Daytona next week, Jake. That should be quite the race, that one.
Yeah, so Brands Hatch is a track that I think should be on the schedule every season. Daytona Road Course is a track I think should never be on the schedule. However, I know Jay will probably dispute this because we've had an awesome race on the broadcast pretty much every season we've gone to Daytona. So I'm sure we'll have, once again, a really good fight between the likes of the Habers, the Scotts. Hopefully we'll see guys like Cooper Webster and JSH come back next week to make it a awesome battle up the front, along with your Nicole Foggies. But yeah, really, really keen to see how we go next week. It's going to become a really interesting second half of the season.
Certainly, and the nature of that track means the chances of a photo finish with a slipstreaming run to the start-finish line are astronomically high. Should be a good one. If you want to stay tuned to all the action, make sure you subscribe to the iRacing Esports Network and to the SimSpeed TV YouTube page. Give us a like if you enjoyed the broadcast. Give us a like if you didn't anyway. All the likes help. Either way. Coming up, though, for SimSpeed TV tomorrow night, just send it. And then on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, more broadcasts coming up. The Australian Turbo Touring Car iRacing Series, the Friday Night Xfinity Series, the Porsche Super Cup as well, home to the likes of Max Verstappen and some of the most talented sim racers in iRacing. And on Sunday morning as well, special event for the Majors Series, the Clash at Daytona, the multi-region event, 7 a.m. that one starts. Make sure you tune in to any of those events. If you are around, make sure you subscribe to stay tuned. But that will do us for tonight. We'll look forward to next week in Daytona. From myself, Ryan Jones, from Jake Burton alongside me, and from Jay Kennedy behind the scenes. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you next time.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's going the outside of both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to him.
Oh my God.
Big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go.
Oh no.
That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?